Hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind. Um, like, comment, subscribe on your way in, and hopefully you enjoy this conversation. There is a ton of other conversations, so definitely go back, check some of those out. A lot of people keep asking me about, like, oh, have you covered this? Or they'll ask me stuff, and now I can actually keep saying, oh, well, yes, we have, because now we actually have quite a number of episodes that we've covered. With that being said, how is everyone doing? I'm joined by Coach Roach. I'm joined by Beyond the Locker Room. How are you guys doing?
Good, man. I had to turn off that light, man. It's coming down there, man. It was just blinding everybody, man. The light on the old dome here, man. It's blinding you guys, man. I had to shut that off.
I'm getting ready to have some lobsters from the sea, so I'm doing really good right now.
Oh, I saw
Nice.
that. Yeah, I saw the picture. I would eat that stuff. That looked pretty nice, man. It's a nice presentation.
Oh, give me a lob, give me about 4 lobster sandwiches. I got no problem eating those.
You're part of the world there, man. If you don't eat lobster, do you get kicked out of the province in this case?
Probably if you didn't eat seafood, you didn't eat.
Yeah, so yeah, well, bread and water, right?
Yeah.
So without going further into the conversation, I just want to say it is that time of year. So everyone, happy holidays, whatever you celebrate, is that time of year. Try to enjoy basketball as much as you can, even if it means enjoying another team. This year we do not have a Boxing Day game, so that is a little bit odd for Raptors land because usually we don't get the Christmas Day. We get the Boxing Day. We don't have either, so it is a little bit interesting. So with that being said, today, instead of looking back at the week and doing a good, bad, and ugly, we're going to do a overall naughty and nice list. We'll probably just, let's pick it, let's say, three players or three people, you could even say, for each naughty or nice list. Keep it nice and, wrap a bow on it. It is that time of year and go from there. Beyond, would you like to start us off?
Put me on the spot here.
Who's on your nice list?
Okay, on my nice list, man. Let's start with Mr. Barnes. I think he might be on a few lists in this case here. So, I mean, when this year started, I was very skeptical of how much of a what, quote leap he would take. Um, he satisfied my thirst as far as that. Like, I'm not losing sleep. If he ends up the year being this player at the moment, I'm straight with that. Like in this case here, I mean, if he can do even another jump throughout the year, which a lot of times that can happen actually with young players. So, I mean, that's great. I think we're kind of seeing one happening in front of our eyes right now a little bit. So yeah, he's definitely on the nice list. Boy, on the nice list. Who else? I would say I will only put Pascal on the nice list because I like how the adjustments and the bounce back he had from the first month of the season, which was pretty disastrous. I think how he's playing now. If you check quietly, I'm not sure a lot of people are talking about this. His numbers are starting to look quite a bit like last year's numbers. Quietly, no one's talking about that. He's now over 21 a game at the moment. He's like 7-6 or something like that, or 7-5. Like he's kind of getting around his numbers from last season without much people, not a lot of fanfare around it. It's very fascinating to watch. It's amazing how a couple of weeks of a season, at the beginning of the season, can set a narrative. If you had to walk someone off the street, you swear Pascal's having the worst season of his career. You look around like, oh, it's like he's kind of creeping right back to where he was before.
He's actually, in terms of PER, it's not the best stat, but he's actually above his career PR stat now, and he started off around like
It's atrocious.
it was bad.
It's
So
bad.
yeah,
Yeah. And the fact that to your point, you always make this point too, is field goal percentage, which is like at some. I mean, if it wasn't for the 3-point shooting, I mean, this dude would be up in like some Shaq territory for field goal percentage. So yeah, so I'll put him in the nice list. Trying to find a third nice right now, man.
I'm struggling too with that one.
You know what? I'll give this guy a third nice, man. It's going to be a different reason in this case here. I'm going to give one to Gary Trent Jr. And the reason why is his professionalism. Look, boys and girls at home, you got young men and women growing up. You want to be a basketball player, a professional sport person. That's how you handle your business. All right. Now, you may not like Gary Trent's game. You may love Gary Trent's game. You may be a Dookie in this case, so he can do nothing wrong. You may be a Tar Heel fan like myself, so you got to look at him sideways a little bit. Wherever the case may be, the way he's handled himself in the last couple of years, dealing with all the nonsense that he's been kind of been like the grenade people have used to toss out to kind of exact whatever punishment they want to another party. He's just kind of gone about his business, played his game, Hasn't said a peep about anybody. Come out there, press conferences, says all the right things, does stuff for the charity on the streets for the kids and stuff like that for the city, and never lets that affect him in this case of what's going on in the court. So I give him a shout out, man, because the guy kind of gets forgotten. He gets tossed around as just of just like, oh, he'll just get tossed and traded at some point. But like from a pure professionalism standpoint, I give him a lot of props, man, because he's been done dirty a little bit by this organization, by the previous coach, even a little bit by the current coach. So props to him, man. I guess we're gonna do the naughty now, or do you want me? There's a lot on that list, boy. Santa's
Coach, have you given your nice list first?
Yeah, I'll just briefly go through it. Mine's basically similar to what Beyond said. So my first nice list has been Scotty this year. I came into this season thinking, about 18, 7, and 7 for his numbers. And look, if he was doing that right now, would you guys be pleased with that? I would be.
Yeah, we had that discussion offline. I said
Yeah.
I thought you were being a bit bullish on like 18.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yep.
I was looking at 17 maybe at best. I said that would be a good, a nice little step. But he's like, man's
Yeah.
hitting 20 right now.
Yeah. So, and my logic for reasoning was at the time, I thought Scotty was going to be point guard of this team. That's why I thought the assist numbers would be up. And I thought the rebound numbers would be about 70 because Pirtle and Siakam and stuff like that. But it's been kind of the opposite.
Mhm.
Scotty's scoring more, he's rebounding more. And look, he's like 6 assists. So basically, he's around that 7 assist mark this year. But yeah, no, Scotty's been, I think, he certainly had the biggest jump, I would say, on this team from like a very promising prospect to like he's a dude, or he's becoming a dude right now, like a hooper and stuff like that. He is a good. I think he's got a chance to be an all-star, sure. The defensive numbers also as well. He is. I don't have he's averaging basically almost 2 steals and a block and a half per game, which is really, really good. And I think sometimes that gets overlooked from the offensive numbers. It just shows that he's kind of doing it at both ends of the court, especially on his help out defense at the rim. As we saw in the Philadelphia game, I think he had a good block on Maxey, and we've seen a couple on like Rozier recently as well. So he's been certainly one of the bright spots of this season. Yeah, like Beyond said, Pascal Siakam as well. Sometimes people will speak of him as like he's 35 years old and past his peak and washed and stuff like that. Like, look, the guy is 29 years old. I think he's in the heart of his prime right now. And like Beyond said, yeah, the numbers weren't very good about a month ago, but he's getting close to 22 points per game. He's about 7 rebounds and about 5 assists. So, and the last 5 games, he's averaging 25, 6 rebounds, 5 assists on 42% from three. So even though the 3 point numbers are down this year, certainly, there are some signs of life, certainly, in increasing the numbers with that shot. So Pascal certainly has gone through a lot in the last 6 months, from all the trade rumors to the start of the year being in a new offense and still in trade rumors and stuff like that. But he's still showing he's basically a 22, 7, and 6 guy, more or less, as he has been since about 2020. And he's still doing that. And I don't foresee why he still can't do that, quite frankly, for the next 2 to 3 years. My other nice on the team, I have to look this up. Who's the athletic trainer of this team? These guys seem to be healthy all year so far, so he's going to be on my nice list. It's not Scott McCullough anymore. It used to be him. I don't know who the trainer is now, but the Raptors have more or less been a very healthy team this year, except for Koloko. And Koloko, that's matters, outside of what's going on in terms of injury with the team on court product. But yeah, no, I'm going to give the nice to the athletic trainer. Keep these guys healthy as best you can.
Yep.
Yes, so you're right. We have been largely healthy on this team. I don't know about the 905. The 905, we had to replace literally the entire 905, and guess what? We got better. To be perfectly honest. But yeah, my nice list really quickly. Scotty Barnes obviously gets a nice check. I do think Gary Trent is a very good choice. So I agree with you guys there. I think he's done a really good job of, being fairly professional throughout all of this turmoil. And Dark, no, I'm just kidding. He's not there. What I will say is, yeah, I think Siakam. If you look at his first 10 games, I actually have it up right here. So he was averaging 19 and a half points on 47% from the field, shooting 25% from
High,
three.
huh? I thought he'd
Yeah,
be less
and
average.
yeah, no, yeah.
He's where he's averaging like 14 a game. How people were talking about he's averaging 19.
He
Okay.
was averaging. Well, remember he had that 39-point game or whatever that pulled us
Yeah.
out of the So that kind of bumped it up a little bit, um, but even still, yeah. And so he with 5 assists, and 4.4 times going to the line. That was the first 10 games, the past 10 games. So there's a chunk that I'm missing in the middle, but it's still interesting to look at. Before I get to my Barnes point, he's now averaging 23 and a half points on 54% shooting. From three, his 3 point attempts are actually down from five to about three, which is probably where I would have him and where I would have suggested. 7 attempts going to the line, shooting 30, almost 31% from three now. 4 assists, so he's averaging around the same amount of assists, a little less because he has more of the offense. And he's actually down in terms of turnovers too. He was averaging almost 3 turnovers to start the year, and he's averaging just two. So the assists are down slightly, but the turnovers are way down, which is really, really good.
Free throw percentage creeping up, coach.
Yes, yes. So it is interesting. Oh, and one other thing which is really interesting, he went from shooting around 70% from the line to 78%. So that's also creeping up too, to your point. Now, in terms of Scotty Barnes, yeah, I think he's really improved this year more than I thought. Said he just has to give effort, and I'd be happy and shoot at like 32%. And I was like, that's really the bar. He has blown past that. Now, I will say one thing, which is important. People who are Barnes fans, do not freak out at this part, please. Buckle up. Right? Okay. He still, from a self-creation standpoint, still shoots a lot better when it's created for him. If you look at his catch and shoot numbers versus the non-catch and shoot numbers, there is a distinct difference. That's not a bad thing. That means that he is improving. Rome wasn't built in a day, and stardom isn't reached in a day for most people. But yeah, he has improved. So with that being said, I guess we'll go to the naughty list.
You have a third. You have a third nice.
No, I said Gary. I said Gary.
Yeah. Okay. Gary was part of your. Okay.
Yeah. I think I said him first or second, but yeah. But yeah. So, my point. One other thing, Scotty Barnes. Before we go to the naughty list, I think as a help side defender, really great. I think Darko is slowly learning. Maybe don't put him as point of attack. I will say Darko. This goes into my naughty list. I'll just jump into my naughty list. The problem is that there are guys defensively that are being put in weird spots. So Barnes is a point of attack defender. It's okay to have that happen here and there, but if it's happening frequently, like for full stretches of games, that's a problem. I don't really remember Pirtle being against this many point guards last year. Say what you want about us giving up corner threes, which, by the way, we are still one of the top in terms of giving up corner threes. And I think last time I checked, opponents shoot the highest percentage of corner threes against us. So that hasn't really changed, ironically. But we're also putting Pirtle in weird spots where he's against, Maxi. That's most people would agree that that is a problem. Not saying that it's all on Pirtle, because it's not. But I think also most sensible people, even the ones I would say it's not on Pirtle, would say that that is not typically what would be considered optimal. So Darko, naughty list. Masai, if the BlackBerry network worked, he'd be on the naughty list. And then the final one for me is the overall usage of the bench And that's just a whole coaching staff. If you're a developmental staff and you're not having certain guys playing or whatever, some of the rotations out there just don't make much sense. You could probably put Dennis. I'm sure he might be on one of your guys' naughty list, but I'll leave that to you guys. So yeah,
Well,
um, yeah.
yeah. I'm just gonna kind of be like, let me just put. I'll start with the first one here. The front office. Um, for us to be in this scenario in this situation, this is malpractice as far as I'm concerned. That's to me, they get the biggest set of coal in their stocking. Because they've been doing this nonsense now for about 3-4 years now. So like right now, they could build a mine right now. The amount of coal they have right now in their stockings, man, over the last 3-4 years, it's been ridiculous. It's been negligent. And I said before, it's pretty much been malpractice. So in my mind, they get the biggest, the biggest bold letters of naughty list, the front office, and you can throw whoever you want as the front office. You know where the buck stops in this case when I talk about the front office. Um, I'm gonna kind of this way. I won't go actually at Darko, but I'll just put it as this. I'll sum it up as I know it's not necessarily a scheme, but I'll just refer to it as the point five offense. Good gosh, if I see this one more time, I'm gonna pretty much want to, throw up my gingerbread cookies. I'm over this point five offense. I'm over it. Okay, and all that encompasses it. I'm done with it. Please, enough. I'll just leave it at that. Um, I'll wrap this one up as, with the exception of Scotty, obviously. And this is my third naughty on the naughty list. The developmental team. I don't know what is going on out here. I don't know how a guy in this case, like Grady Dick, who looked like he could shoot in his sleep, is all of a sudden a guy that he can't find. He can't find a shot to hit Lake Ontario. I don't understand what happened. And that's just him. I mean, we've been playing around here with Precious and Flynn for 4 years now, and I've seen almost nothing looks better. Nothing. You keep going down the list. I'm just sitting there going, wow. I said before, exception of Scotty. Everybody else, man, have a quote developmental phase. It has not been pretty. So that developmental group, man, and that's on the front office. That's on the Raptors. When it's all said and done, because we now have two different developmental groups. And still see not much difference. So that group, man, if we're going to be a successful organization, that group has to be top tier. It can't be middle of the road. It can't be bad, because we can't go and fix the message by getting some big name free agent to fix it. We need to actually have a really good developmental team. So that's my third one for my naughty list.
I like the developmental team as one because I'm trying to think how can I put this all together in one because I have two others, but the developmental team certainly. Pascal has benefited the most thus far, and Scotty has benefited the most thus far, especially this year. As you know, these are the two guys that we look at as our developmental like golden pieces. I look at a guy like OG, who I've been watching for 7 years. I've seen the same offense. I have not really seen anything that's different. I think he's a good NBA player. It's a reason teams want him. I can't think of much other developmental stuff that really stands out to me. Is there something that you guys have seen that I have not seen that's really stood out to you developmentally on the offensive end that you have not seen before? Or that maybe you didn't see one time, but now you see it?
Well, remember we were told that OG doesn't need to improve. That he's just fine how he is, regardless of what happens with
Mm-hmm.
Scotty. Now that Scotty's improving, my point still stands.
Yep.
OG, especially if you are going to remove Siakam, needs to step up, way up, in terms of his ability to generate offense.
Yeah. I like how he wants a bigger role. I get that from a player's mentality. I want
Yeah,
a bigger role. I think that he's got a case there, that's what I'm saying. But at
but
the same
but
time,
coach, has there been a single game in the past 20 where he hasn't dribbled the ball off his foot at least twice in a game? I'm being dead serious, by the way.
no, and I'm getting no, that's my point I'm gonna
Yeah,
make. I'm saying he's got a case historically about what he can do being a starter, his age and stuff like that, but he's never made that Mikal Bridges jump that people thought that he was going to. If he's on a different team, maybe he does. I don't know, but His usage rate is down this year. The last 5 games, it has not looked very good. That's for sure. I mean, his last 10 games, he's averaging 14 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 30% from three. And you want to give that guy $40 million.
He's shooting, say what from three again?
30% in the last 10 games.
Who
And
who is
last
this? Is
five
this
games,
Precious?
this is OG.
No, really,
Mhm.
really.
It surprised me.
Yeah, the last 10 games, 30% from three.
It
Sign me
surprised
up for the 40 million experience.
Yep.
It's like a lotto.
Yep.
me.
And
Yeah.
if you want to know the last 5 games, it's even worse. He's averaging 11 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds on 18% from three. That's in the last 5 games. Now, I don't. He's kind of on my naughty list
No,
right
I
now
had
because I
him. Yeah, I had him in the mix too, but I said I'll leave him for now.
yeah. So he is part of that developmental list, I guess that Beyond had mentioned. Um, this whole idea of development of this team, I get the perspective of we have to see more from these guys to know what we have. I think 28 games, I think I've seen enough. I saw enough really at about 15 or 20 to know. I keep seeing these guys who've been 3 or 4 years with the team, the old guard, as Beyond likes to say. Um, and these developmental gains have not happened. And moving forward, I think it's safe to say that you got to choose a different direction moving forward. And how you develop guys probably has to change a little bit too. How you identify guys, who you want to be a part of this organization moving forward, it's got to change a little bit. So the developmental team is Beyond said that'd be my number one. Number two, I'll go quickly with this. Darko. Coaches are known to be stubborn. His staff's stubborn, especially him by the sounds of it. Um, I thought I read a stat where the starting lineup in the NBA, our starting lineup, is the only one in the negative. Did I hear that correctly from one Blake Murphy?
Mhm.
Um, numbers don't lie at the end of the day. They tell facts. So how he has been really stubborn with his rotations this year, and just a lot of the rookie mistakes. I think a lot of expectations were put into him this year to fix. But one thing's clear: we really haven't fixed anything of it. So I remember on the Will Liu show, I think it was Alex Wong, he said, "Boy, Darko's got a lot on his plate to fix next year for a rookie coach." I remember hearing that. I'm like, yeah, he kind of does. This isn't like, this is you're bringing in a Doc Rivers or a Pop or a Spolstra to try to fix it. I'll say more so like a Spolstra, but it's hard for a rookie coach to try to do all that. And we've just kind of realized too, just their offense, this 1-5, this making Pirtle a hub, it's just not working. So he's kind of on the naughty list, certainly. And my last one, certainly for me, is the front office. You brought the same team back basically from last year. You said you didn't like the product on the floor last year. I don't know why you think it wouldn't be different this year with a rookie coach. If anything, it's been worse. We are 27th in 3-point percentage, so nothing really has changed there too much. So, I've certainly been disappointed with them. There have been things that, players they've brought in, like a Dennis Schroeder, who's been mainly a backup guard for most of his NBA career. And Darko says, well, I think he should have a chance to run his own team. And we're starting to see it now. I'm not so much blaming Dennis. I'm the empowerment that he's getting. That's the issue at hand, because if he's doing that on the bench, what he's doing with the starters, it's different, right? That's what I was hoping we would see this year, but we haven't. So those would be my naughty list: front office, Darko, developmental, just like Beyond said.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the four-man lineup data between Barnes and Siakam, just them separately, which ones are the best. With Barnes, um, none of them have Yak in them, except for one, which is OG, Barnes, Yak, and Siakam. Oh wait, no, that's also negative. Sorry. It's yeah, none of them have Yak in it. The Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And it's kind of the same for the other guy as well. So, um, I'm not saying it's only Yak, but when you take out one of Yak or Schroeder, it works a lot better from
Yeah,
those lineups. If you take out both, it works the best. Just saying. But I digress. With that being said, let's look quickly at the week ahead before we get into our generalized conversation. So, we are recording this on the day of a game. It is not Sunday, it is Saturday. So, a little bit of a different schedule. Um, they are playing Utah. Jonte Porter is with the team, and he might play. He may not play. We will TBD. By the time this is released, I will probably release it probably tomorrow
Outside,
because
do you think he's gonna play?
I was gonna actually ask, yeah, the over
Yeah.
under on if he's gonna play. So, do you think he's gonna play? I'll ask. I'll throw it back at you. No.
Oh, no, it's like to tease you. No, he won't play. You just sit there and watch. You get a good seat at the house, but he won't play.
Yeah, I was.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't see it either. I want him to see something different, maybe.
look, Darko needs a win, um, and he may not be willing to chance it. Should he play? Probably. He should probably get 5 minutes. I hope he gets 5 minutes. So I'll say that. Um, but please. Uh,
To see a 7-footer hit a three behind the break. When's the
um,
last time we saw that?
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you this. Okay, let's say say he does play. What portion of the game and what type of lineup would you like to see him come in with?
Play with Siakam, play
and
with
Barnes.
Scotty.
What juncture of the game?
Um, that's a good question. I'd like to see it down the stretch. Actually, maybe the third quarter.
Okay, late in the game. Okay,
I want to get him in end of first, early second, just to get his feet, his hit moving and getting used to it and stuff like that. Get the jitters out.
yeah, I like him with the late because usually he has Siakam late. He plays almost the first quarter of Siakam, right? Or some of those bench guys like Flynn comes in with him. I would like to see him with that unit. Wherever that unit is with Flynn, Siakam, I think OG sticks around.
Sometimes he's now doing Barnes.
Yeah, now he's actually flipped it with OG now at Barnes, but that unit late first quarter,
Yep.
that's the where I like to see him kind of get a little run and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, him and Barnes and Gary,
Yes, that's the person for you.
that'd be interesting to see. I just remember, let's just say hypothetically he does well. I just remember last year Nurse was begging Masai to extend Jeff Doughton's contract and stuff like that because he was so desperate for a backup guard to Fred. If this guy does play well and stuff like that, you know, be nice if Darko didn't have to beg to have him on the team.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah, it's a hypothetical and it's a bit of a long shot and stuff like that.
Yeah, you
But
fired the only guy that will actually ask for stuff. Um, and Darko might ask for a budget for pizza. That's about it. Um,
pizza parties.
um, wonder he'll do the pizza because it's the free one that comes with the game.
How did it convert to a pizza? It wasn't just dinner. Now it's like a pizza party. How did it get it there, man? Now we're kind of like bring it down.
Hey man, we don't know his contract.
Dinner makes it sound like fine dining. You got your little bib to kind of tuck yourself in. You got a nice, tablecloth. All that turn from that to pizza party. Like it's like, wait a second, how did we get there?
I think it developed a life of its own. The pizza party one. Yeah.
Do you have Chuck E. Cheese in the 416?
Yeah,
All right, hey, there you go, man.
There's Chuck E. Cheese hanging around there. There's one
People
out.
can get a smile on their face and all that kind of stuff.
There's one out in Scarborough. Yeah, we can do it.
Coach, you were gonna say something before we
No,
do.
no, that was it. No, that was it.
Okay. So yeah, so moving to the next thing, people again say it's trade season. Let's talk about the tough position that Masai's in to be able to facilitate a trade. Last week we talked about trades in general. We kind of moved it into I think Coach talked about more so why it's easy to trade OG. I think it's a good time to maybe talk about a Siakam deal and maybe the pros and the cons, all that kind of stuff, really quickly. Um, I don't know if you guys want to talk about trade targets at all this time. We can save that for another time. I think I would prefer to do that, but I think it's important to talk about why and just focus just on Siakam. No OG talk, just on Siakam. Give the people what they want because everyone wants to talk about it. So yeah. Um,
They did on the Will Lou show. Yes, that was right. I
they
remember
did.
saw it the other day. Yeah,
They
yeah.
did. And we talk a lot about it privately. I don't think we talk a lot about it on the show. So
Hmm.
we did once, but we had a power outage, and it never made the show. Mid conversation. So um, okay, so yeah, Siakam. I'll set it up here. The challenges of a Siakam deal is twofold. Number one, he's harder to fit into an offense because he requires a certain amount of an offense to be the most effective. Some people see that as a negative. I don't see it necessarily as a negative because he's a good player, but it is harder to plug and play him into a lineup at this stage of a season. I think the other thing is that because of his contract number, two things. Number one, from a free agent standpoint, even if you don't sign him to an extension, but you sign him in free agency, his cap hold is a lot higher than a OG. So when you're trading for OG, you can trade him, negotiate with him behind the scenes, and then announce it later. And his cap hold's only 28.5 ish million. And if you have like say $60 million, you can go still try to snag quickly and make the Knicks, have a hard decision. Whereas with a Siakam, you don't necessarily have that opportunity for that. Now, from a Raptor standpoint, if you have OG as a cap hold, you can't negotiate with Quickly because Quickly would require you to get probably at least 28 million, and uh, we'd only be able to create 52 million. So already you're do the math, people. But from just a trade standpoint, it would be tougher. So that's a challenge. The other thing is that what are you getting back? So, you talk to other fans of other teams and all this kind of stuff. And I've talked to Atlanta fans a couple times because that seems to be the hot button for a Siakam deal. I think it's more of the Pacers, regardless of who goes out. And here's the challenge. They're at the point where they're like, I don't want to give you Buffkin. I haven't seen Buffkin play. Now, people, go back on the channel. We've talked about Buffkin. We like Buffkin. However, when the man hasn't played, the only other guy that they want to give you, because I've heard, other content creators say, well, if they give you Bogey and stuff like that, it's not bad. They're not going to give you Bogey. That's not in their plans. And I don't know if Dejounte, he's an he'd be interesting, but I don't necessarily think that there is the same interest as there was in the past. So really, you're looking at AJ Griffin, Kobe Buffkin, and maybe you get one of their picks. They'd probably want to give you the Sacramento pick. That's fine. If you're maybe Masai pushes for additional picks, but the additional picks, you're talking 2029. That's not useful for any sort of retool rebuild. Sorry, I'm being long winded, guys. AJ Griffin, kind of fallen out of favor with Quinn's rotation, hasn't really performed up to snuff. Could be a sophomore slump. I don't see the pop that a lot of other people have seen, and neither does his coach. There's also the other factor that we can get into later with AJ, but point is that it's not a great package. So if you're not even going to get a Kobe Buffkin, I don't see the point because you're taking on long-term salary, and that long-term salary will prohibit you from being able to be players in free agency anyways. Thoughts?
Okay. Yeah, I always wonder, what's the result get when you trade Siakam? If that's what it is. Do you expect in this case? I guess what's your objective? A, is it the clear salary when you're dealing with Siakam? B, is it actually to go and get young blue chip prospects if it's Siakam?
Are you asking me?
I'm putting it more like a rhetorical.
Right.
Or C, are you looking to kind of build talent around Scotty more of an immediate standpoint? Now, once again, because no one knows what the hell this team's doing, no one really knows what they're trying to do. So it could be any of the three, it could be all three, and it seems like
People want all three, but all three
right,
isn't possible.
to
That's
be,
the
right. To
yeah.
be fair to what you're saying, I agree with you, and I also think the front office wants all three. I think that's the reason why they can't get a deal done with anybody. Because I think they want all three. They want the young blue chip prospect. They want the draft picks. They want the vet in this case here. Like it can't get everything, especially on expiring deals. Be it whichever do you trade. But since we're sitting with Siakam, good luck to you. And then you have the other part of it is that, if you're the other team, it's like, will he sign with us afterwards? So why am I giving up X, Y, and Z if I know he's not going to sign in like about 4 months? So from that perspective, I don't blame anybody for like throwing like, low ball, not even low ball. Just I think those are just respectable pitches because they know they can't guarantee the guy's going to be back. I think the one team that might be able to throw out more stuff and not lose any sleep about it, to be quite honest with you, is the Warriors. They're the one team because of their unique situation from a payroll standpoint, from where they are in their journey as a team. They're the one team that I think of all the quote suitors that were there are because most of the other suitors are essentially teams are in the middle or teams are slightly above the middle, right? Where it's like, this could give them a leap and stuff like that, but are they willing to do that with what they have and sacrifice what they already have? Golden State, they take the poker terminology, they all in, man. The chips are all in the move in the middle. They ain't got nothing left to do. They're taking
even more so than even the Pacers, because for the Pacers, for the reasons that I outlined from a free agency standpoint and otherwise, OG's their man. Like, let's keep it a buck.
Well, even if Siakam's their man, like they're not in any position to say like, well, you know what? If we do this right now, we're going to be in a position to beat one of the top three teams in the East.
Yeah, because here's the thing: it doesn't even matter what player it is. Even if you get like LeBron in a trade, usually it's not the first move; it's the secondary move. And when I asked the Hawks fans, I was like, "Well, what's your secondary move?" I don't think that they had really thought about it. They're like, "Well, then we'll just trade DeJounte." I'm like, "Yeah, but then you got to make sure that you're still getting an upgrade, and you don't have the move to get an upgrade on a DeJounte Murray."
Right.
Because you don't have the picks, you won't have the prospects. So they didn't really think about it. I don't think they had fully processed that part of the deal, but that's a whole other thing.
Right. Because I look at it like, okay, let's say Atlanta got what they wanted, right? Let's say everyone got what they wanted. So Siakam's in Atlanta, and say Atlanta gives us, just for the sake of argument, say somehow Bogdanovich moves on, the two young kids go on, and wherever filler it makes sense. So say that's what it is. Do you like? I look at Atlanta's team. Okay, they have Pascal in the front court now, and they have two guards in this case here that are not really great. Like Trey is pretty good at running an offense for the most part on the pick and roll, so I think he and Siakam could be pretty effective. But defensively, that still doesn't help their problems.
No, because it's like their problems are the perimeter defense right now.
Right. Mm-hmm. So like, how's that helping them? And then it's like the breakdowns that come from the point guard spot. You still have agent Capella, like that. None of that works in this case here. Like Siakam in some ways could maybe help because he would be an improvement on some of the guys in the front court, but like not to the extent that I think people think. Now on offense, like I think there's also an issue on offense in this case because like once all said and done, you have now three guys now want the ball.
Also with Capella, the challenge too is that if you put him on the bench, which they would probably be forced to, unless they found another suitor, then you're depressing his value even more than it already is.
Well, also too, if he started in this case, Pascal makes you wonder, like we have like three centers of the league can't shoot. I got to be on two teams with them. Like seriously, this is what we're doing here. Is someone trying to sabotage my career? Please, someone is trying to do so. Like he went from the worst guy in this case here that can't shoot from a center position in the league to arguably the second worst guy in the league that can't shoot in the league.
Well, I mean, he'll feel right at home.
Right. Man, I think Orlando have enough sense to do what you suggest. Just move Capella to the bench one time, just get that over with. They wouldn't waste time here experimenting, trying to make their center feel warm and fuzzy.
So yeah, the Golden State is really the best option I would say, or the Pacers. The Pacers again, for what they want to do, and I think they still want to like kind of have their cake and eat it too, which is such a weird saying, but yeah, it, OG makes more sense there because then they can trade for him and still be free agent players.
You know what? More and more I think about it, I think actually Siakam makes more sense for them
Interesting. So from a scoring standpoint, I 100% agree with you. Um,
because they have an ascending star,
mm,
potentially going. You all can pick superstar, wherever you want to call it, but he's moving in that direction. And the thing you usually need is a running mate as fast as possible. A player like that. How ironic is that, guys? How ironic is that Indiana will be looking for something like that? I wonder in this case, a young fledgling star might want another second banana to run with it, huh? And we want to do what?
you know what's really ironic? You know the timeline conversation.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Uh huh.
I
Uh
do you
huh.
know how old Tyrese is?
Uh huh. He's like 21 or something like that.
He's 23. He's 1 year older than Scotty Barnes.
23. There you go. Right.
If you're good, that timeline does
That's
not matter. They are not
like
arguing about the
weird.
timeline,
I
people.
mean, we in the holiday serious and stuff like that. So I'm gonna try to be calm with this. I just use the word BS. I'll use that initials. It is that. Like it's nonsense talk, man. So this idea, and why watch them in that in-season tournament? And since then, yes, they need defense, but quite honestly, they need defense in a lot of places. And in my mind, what they need more so right now, they need another guy that can help Halliburton score. The drop between Halliburton and whoever you consider to be the second best pacer, that drop is enormous, and you can't have that drop being that big if you want to be a playoff team.
So I do want to get coaching on this, but I will say so. Okay, so let's just say we have two teams that make sense right now. OKC doesn't really make sense right now based on the fact that he's expiring and they can wait all day. So you have two teams. Coach, do you have any thoughts?
Well, number one, from a basketball standpoint, I don't want to trade Siakam. I think him and Scotty can work. I've said this to you guys countless times and have tweeted it. When you have two forwards, power forwards, let's call them, averaging 6 assists a game and 20 points, I think that's something that you need to consider keeping and putting pieces around them. And this whole idea of timeline, I think you had mentioned it. Magic and Kareem, were they on the right timeline together? I don't think so. You draft talent, right? LeBron and Kyrie, you had mentioned that. Anthony Edwards and Carl Anthony Towns. This is like Scotty and Pascal. They seem to be making it work.
Kyrie and Luca.
Kyrie and Luca. The only thing Minnesota did was, well, they have some decent pieces around them, around their team, and a coach who's experienced a bit more than the one that we have now. So this whole timeline, yeah, I get it, but sometimes timelines don't have to matter so much when you have two guys who can work together right now. And in terms of cap, I get that argument too. Maybe that something does have to happen if they're looking to cut back a little bit. So fine. The Atlanta deal back in the summer, I was never a fan of it. DeAndre Hunter, well, that's OG Anunoby. We already have one OG Anunoby. They're both about the same age right now. I like his contract, Hunter's contract. I think it's for like 3 or 4 years at 20 million. Contract wise, it's kind of cheap. So especially for this NBA. So I do get that. Buffkin, I haven't seen him play yet in the NBA. I'm not counting summer league. It's hard for me to do that. I want to see him play in a rotation before I would make any judgment on if I would want him in a deal. I think he's a good prospect. I thought we were going to draft him certainly as one of our three because I had Keontae, Buffkin, and Grady was in there too. We just didn't think Grady was going to be selected where he was. So in some cases, I do see how Buffkin makes sense for the Raptors moving forward, certainly. But I need to see him play first. In terms of the Indiana, um, Siakam's interesting there in Indiana. You put him next to Miles Turner and Halliburton. The thing is, they have to really try to make the salaries match, which would mean Buddy Hield's got to come back. in order to make anything work. And if I'm the Raptors, whether it's Siakam or Anunoby, I'm not trying to bring him into this. I'm looking at Indiana for either. They have good contracts, a lot of guys on rookie contracts. They have guys who can play offense. They're one of the top offensive teams in the league, and that's something that we struggle with. So ideally, you want to get back a blue chip prospect. Now, who are those on that team? Well, it's Matherin and Nemhard, and probably Jerace Walker. We know Nemhard is Canadian. We know Matherin's Canadian, so probably no issue there. Um, they are probably more willing to give up Nemhard than they are Matherin moving forward. And if I was them, I would do the same. I think they should keep Matherin. So you're looking at some package of Nemhard, Buddy. You hope to get a pick or two and stuff like that. But because of this 1 year deal left on his contract, it makes it really difficult. Look at what James Harden went for with Philly. You got KJ Martin, Batum, Marcus Morris Sr., but you get the 2 picks. That's what they were. That's the main part of that deal. I just don't know if the Raptors can bring back 1 year guys who go to expire in like 2 picks way down the road. I just don't think that would be good for them for Siakam.
Well, they put themselves in a position, coach, too, that the 2 picks down the road can't ever impact things because Scotty's contract's coming up.
Well, I was going to also add that Nemhard, the Raptors would prefer Nemhard as well because Nemhard's an expiring next year, so you have to pay him his money at the same time as Scotty as well.
Mm-hmm.
So things get, no matter what, things get rich real quick. No matter what, it's just which are you willing to pay, and are you willing to? I mean, it's easier to replace an elite role player than it is to replace a call it a guy who's at least playing at bare minimum an all-star level. If people want to really be particular about it, but I will give a flip side to this conversation, which is the pros. The pros is that you do pick a direction from that standpoint. I've always been in the camp of, you keep Siakam or you just trade both Siakam and OG just because of what I think that Barnes needs. But don't really need to kind of revisit that right now. I do want to add one other person before I go on to the pros of trading Siakam, which is certain David Robinson won 2 chips in his career, one in '98, one in 2003, 2004. Those were with Tim Duncan. Now, I will say that the age gap between the two was quite similar. Tim Duncan was actually 21, and at the time, David Robinson was actually 33 for the first one, and then the second one was at 37. Now, I'm not comparing the two situations because, in a way, those two actually played very similar spots in like truly similar spots and in truly similar ways. Now, obviously, Tim Duncan's Tim Duncan, David Robinson's David Robinson. Not trying to compare them to the two, but I'm just saying that's like, like I'm just putting that out there in terms of the age gap. Yeah, I think the pros for trading Siakam now instead of waiting is what we should really be talking about. And it's like, it really depends on the conversations that Masai's having with Siakam. If you feel confident that you can't resign him, then yes. Or even get an extension, which would be the ultimate because it's actually a little bit cheaper. Then yeah, you should probably just be moving him because if he's not going to resign, you're wasting your time. I agree. So that's the first thing is that if you can't resign him and you've pissed him off so much, then there's a definite advantage to moving him. The other thing is that yes, now if you have a good GM, it's not as big of a problem. But if you don't trust your GM, it is probably a little bit more in terms of legwork, in terms of finding the moving parts to make it work because you need a few more shooters. Unless you're going to get one back in the deal that is going to stay. We don't know if Buddy Hield's going to stay, but say you get Brandon Podziemski, you're really high on Brandon Podziemski. I don't expect him to be an all-star, but he can shoot for sure. It's a little bit easier from that standpoint. So I'm just trying to give the alternative of there are pros and cons for trading both players, but specifically we're talking about Siakam. There are pros for it. The question is that At what level does fit versus talent actually matter? And with talent, I'm including basketball IQ. Now, those players from Golden State, smart players, by the way. Just going to say that, but I do think that there is a talent drop off for sure. So yeah, just thoughts on that, Coach. I'll go to you first.
Uh, that's a good question. It's hard to answer, like, because if you trade Siakam, this is the most important trade that you've done in a very long time for this team. You have to get something back. Because let's just face it, we're not a free agent, or a player in free agency. We do fairly well in trades historically, not in the last 3 years. And we have to rely on trades and drafting. Sorry, that's what I'm trying to say. So I guess if you talent matters eventually, in the end, I guess in a deal with Siakam, can you get back talent and can you get back fit? That's what I'd be trying to do.
Yeah, and I've heard of people saying, "We'll just throw 35 at it quickly." With all the supposed money that you're going to have. First of all, if you're doing a trade with Siakam, you're doing it with Atlanta, you won't have that money because you're going to have to take on DeAndre Hunter. And then if you're going to do the team option on either AJ Griffin or Kobe Buffkin, you don't have the money anymore. It's gone. But even if you did have the money, um, there's no guarantee unless you're really throwing 35 at him. I don't if we're being honest, I know it's easy to say 35, whatever, but then you don't have the ability. You still have to build a team because, again, you have to replace a Precious. You have to, assuming, unless besides keeping him, or you have to replace a Flynn. And all of a sudden, your money just shrinks up. And then you only have your biannual exception and veteran minimums. And to your point, in terms of free agency, we are not a team that is going to be good enough to attract free agents to come to us at a minimum, which is where the problem lies. It's not necessarily like you can get one free agent and overpay for them. Sure, it's building out the rest of that roster. But again, there are pros. I agree. So I like again. I'm really trying to be fair here and say that there are pros and there are cons. Um, Con list might be a little bit worse in my opinion. Some people I think are just fed up with this team and just like I'm done. I totally get that. I don't blame you. And also, yeah, I don't think a lot of people have faith, and that's part of where this comes from.
Yeah, this is exactly where it comes from. The fact that the reason why we're in this position where we're in and why everyone's trying to find the perfect deal is because we all know, even all the lovers of Masai in this case, know this as well too. This team is incapable of making the second deal. And because they're incapable of making the second deal, they have to find every perfect thing they can find in the one deal they're going to make. Because they're not making any more deals after that. I always remember what Coach said last year when Pirtle was actually traded for it. And we all sat here with a shrug. It's like, okay, so what's the second move now?
Well, ironically, any Siakam or OG trade, assuming that you get multiple pieces back, will require a second move, and that's one thing that we haven't even talked about.
Right. Because because when you look at the teams, like, okay, fine. Maybe you get, okay, let's say take Indiana. Say Indiana trades and they trade for Siakam, and you get yourself out of it. Maybe you get Mathurin. Let's just say it was you get the Mathurin and you get Mathurin Buddy Hield. Say you get your wish, and I'm not even sure what else you need in this case here. Maybe you don't get a draft pick with it. Maybe that's all you get. And everyone's out grousing, oh, we get a draft pick about it because something's got to be wrong with the deal. Fine. Then go and make another deal in this case with some of the bench players and get yourself the pick. I mean, it's a late round pick.
But also, you're over. My point is like you can only have 15 guys on a roster.
Exactly. You have to move for some of them anyhow. You'll get the pick that way. But people don't seem to think that way. It's like everything has to be in one fell swoop. It's like, no. To your point, the numbers alone will tell you have to do so. Like you have to move a guy. Maybe you get the draft pick that way. Or worse is a second round pick. Okay, nowadays second round picks in the CBA are pretty important now. So I just think that's the reason why everyone's in this kind of like there's so much anxiety built around this because if you had a normal functioning operation at the front office, this would have been done like 2-3 years ago. Second thing is because really, let me tell you, folks at home, this really isn't that much of an issue. This ain't trying to figure out the caramel secret. Okay, it ain't that hard to figure out, guys. Okay, it really is not. To you, Kenyon, this isn't that hard, man. Two moves, this team could be a team could be pushing 50
I
wins.
mean, I've said it. I haven't put it out there, but like again, there are moves that you could do or could have done. Like just okay. One OG conversation here is if you made that deal with the Mavs at draft night, you would have Case and Wallace here. Okay, all right, and you would have had other stuff. Even if you had to take on Bertans, you still would have had Case and Wallace here. People now are begging for Case and Wallace. People told me at least specifically, as I'm the stan, told me that no, I didn't know what I'm talking about. Now everyone's like, oh, dude, shooting like literally the best in the NBA from three of all players. And like point of attack defense, stuff like that. Young Kentucky guard, yada yada yada.
Kentucky guards, I
And
don't know.
then if from there, it's like okay, if Pirtle doesn't fit, and at least you're only making the Pirtle move.
Oh yeah, I remember a deal way back when for a number 7 pick and Josh Hart. That would have been nice, I think. Oh yeah. No, that Josh Hart guy.
I wasn't even going back
Oh,
that
that
far,
kid.
even right.
Oh
Like it's
man.
like,
I stand by that. I took heat in
oh
this
yeah,
in the RLTV spaces for it, and boy, I tell you, man, if I had money on that, then man, I'd be right now having a nice 4-course meal right now, a big fat steak if I put money on that.
yeah. I mean, it because to your point, there's really you don't need. I say 2 years because I think it takes 2 years for things to happen here, but like really, you just need 2 or 3 max solid moves within a really give it 6 months because it's hard sometimes to formulate all those deals right away. But 2 really solid deals. But if you trade Siakam to a lesser extent, OG, those deals have to hit so well, and that is the challenge that Masai is facing.
I mean, if you
That's why I
trade,
said to a lesser extent, OG.
yeah, because I think you could get more. I think yeah, you could probably get
You
away.
can't waste an OG trade, is my
Oh,
point.
you can't waste the OG trade. I agree with that. Yes, completely. Yeah.
So but I don't think he will be wasted. But if you get like from a trade standpoint, if he is traded, but if you wasted an OG trade, that's also bad. And you can't just get picks back. I know everyone's like, oh man, we should just focus on. We don't have time to develop guys if Barnes is this good. And there's not really someone from this particular draft, regardless of how you feel about it, that is going to be ready in time unless they are really generational. I don't see anyone who's generational in this draft, so they're not going to be impacting winning for at least a year and a half. Is what you should be expecting, because that's the case with most rookies, and
Yeah.
that's at a best case.
And if we lose tomorrow or we lose our next game against Utah, that's going to put us in 7th worst. And I'm going to take a guess here and say Memphis is going to win more games coming up with Job Act. And if they pass us, so not too far behind us now, them and Utah, that puts us right in that 6th spot. I really don't want to be in that spot. I never came in looked this year to be in that spot because that takes now your pick conveys to 2024 or 2025, sorry, when you could lose your pick to the Spurs, and that's supposed to be a really deep draft. I'd rather get rid of it this year and then have my pick back next year. Truthfully, I wouldn't have given up my pick at all. You might as well just see it through, but you're in the mess that you're in. Thanks, front office. But yeah, I really don't want to be in that position again because it's going to be hard because we're not so bad like a Washington or Detroit, sort of beyond. Um, and I don't think we're not as bad as Charlotte or Portland. We're literally in the wrong spot possible to be in that 7, 8 worst team. Nobody wants to be there. You might as well just be Washington at that point
Yeah,
with a direction, with a rebuilding plan. Oh, there's
Man,
plan, but a direction.
I want to have a good Christmas, man. You're getting me all depressed here.
yeah.
I'm not trying. I'm not trying to.
It's a tough position, and I think even then. So again, I'm not saying with this conversation, I'm not even trying to advocate, but I'm just saying like, look, like if you trade Siakam, fine, but you can't just be the best thing back is an AJ Griffin and DeAndre Hunter. You That's not acceptable. That is why a deal wouldn't happen. If that was enough, the deal would have happened. And you're not getting a Kongwu because they want to get rid of Clint, right?
Can
Um,
you, oh my gosh. Can you imagine if they make that Atlanta trade and the three greatest Raptors ever, Kyle, DeMar, and Siakam. The most we have to show for it is Precious Achua.
Careful about calling them the three greatest Raptors because some people might have issues.
Well,
Actually, I'd put Vince. You could put Vince higher.
yeah, oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Vince would be in there too. Oh, well, if I throw Vince's trade in there, my goodness, that really gets worse. So the four greatest Raptors ever, the four greatest Raptors ever. Oh my gosh, it
You
gets
get
even
Precious, AJ Griffin, DeAndre Hunter, whoever the Aaron
perhaps.
people were, the Williams people,
Yeah,
some dude
Well, we
that
got
didn't.
Kawhi Leonard back in the DeMar, but still, I see your point.
yeah, but
The Demar one was fair. Yeah,
right, but yeah, you want.
that, but that makes
Yeah.
up. I guess the Demar thing makes up for
Yeah, that one
a
you get
trade
the
and a
ring.
half.
You get the ring. Fair enough. Yeah, but like my goodness, man, it's a lot, man.
Yeah, so outside of the Demar one, it's not looking great. Um, so yeah, I mean, look. I've told people I'm fine either way. I just if you trade Siakam, you know, to your point, beyond, we didn't really get into this. We could probably get into it a little bit now in like 5 minutes, kind of a thing. With like, what should you be looking for if you can pick two of those requirements because you're only going to get a maximum of two. Um, and I think that that's an interesting place to kind of discuss it briefly and then leave it because I think it comes back down to a kind of a conversation that people tiptoe around and dance around and haven't been ready to talk about, which
But
is what is Scotty.
well, it would depend on which guy you're trading, right? So if you were going the premises of a Siakam deal,
Yep, just Siakam.
Siakam, you need to get yourself a blue chip. I think you need that more than anything else. That is the number one priority for
So the three things that you asked for were a blue chip and then
draft picks, or in this case, a guy is an all-star caliber player, level player to play with.
yeah, and we're probably not going to get the All
So
Star.
that guy's off the table, right? So that, yeah, that would be almost like if say things went wrong in Minnesota and you want to trade for Cat, right? That
Yeah.
type of stuff, right? That now is dead. So
And Zach LaVine, just so viewers know.
Yeah, he would fall down. Yeah.
So okay. So would you consider Zach LaVine for a Siakam trade? I'm not putting this. Just put. Okay, I agree. I think it's a step down.
I would want Zach LaVine to come play with Siakam and Scotty. It's a lateral move, probably, because you probably have to give up OG. But at the same time, I'd be more interested in seeing that than giving up Siakam for LaVine.
Or OG would have to be the secondary move.
Yeah,
to get you a bench.
Well, yeah, because the psychology part, people don't seem to understand the psychology part when you make deals like that. Because if you either make the deal for LaVine and he comes here and say everything's status quo, and they were somehow miraculously signed back OG. You tell me you have OG, LaVine, and Scotty. Whose mentality in this case lately going to be the guy that's going to be controlling the offense?
Not Scotty.
Exactly.
And not
right?
OG.
Exactly. And that, so you want to be Chicago Part 2 further north? That's
the only person whom he might defer to might be Siakam, or if he had a right coach, mainly because of the.
No, he would defer to Siakam in this case here, but
ring.
he's deferring to other. Right, exactly. He'll defer to Siakam. He's not deferring to other two dudes.
Yeah, and it's not a diss to Scotty. Should he defer? Probably. I don't know.
I'll
let other people have that argument, but
right. But it's also the psychology and It's also the mindset of the other player, right?
Yep.
Right. Everyone wants to make Scotty something that Scotty's not. Scotty's not doing at this point in his career is going to say, "Hey, man, it's my team here. You do this, I do that." No,
accolades matter to players, and that is basically what you're describing for the folks at home. And you can quibble whether that's fair or not, or because like I heard a conversation people were talking about how like, okay, how many players can you get that project to be better than Siakam? It's like, but that's the wrong framing. Anytime how many players project to be better than OG? I don't want to talk like we're not trading to get projections, right? We're trading to put a product on the floor to get butts and seats to then go to the playoffs as far as you can, because winning solves everything.
Right. Yeah. So So to your point, to wrap it up, I want the blue chip prospect. That's the one I want.
Is there any other thing that you're looking for? So blue chip, all star, and then there was something else.
The draft picks,
Do you
right?
value cap space at all?
No,
Okay,
because we
coach.
don't do it in the cap space.
Yeah.
Sorry, what's the question again?
There's the three things. I guess four things. We'll add cap space. So cap space, an all star caliber player, a blue chip prospect, or what was the other? Or draft picks. Out of that, is there obviously the blue chip is one, but beyond the blue chip, is there one that you would prioritize in the Pascal Siakam trade?
Blue chip certainly would be number one. I think draft picks. I think we just don't have many of them now. I think moving forward, I think you could prioritize that. I want to get a pick in this draft. I want to be clear.
Mm.
But I want a late first. I want a dude who's ready to go day one next year to be in the rotation, like Jaquez is in Miami.
Bruno Caboclo.
Not that raw, no.
It's just right
um,
now. I mean, like I don't know where he's going to land in this case, but the little boy plays for North Carolina's point guard Davis right now, right? He's about second or third year dude right now. If he came in to play for the Raptors, next year and stuff like that, I would say he's no worse than what Flynn is right now.
yeah,
Right.
I just don't want more projects on the team. Brady's going to be a project. Scotty's kind of out of that now per se, but he still needs time to develop to what he very well could
But
be.
even Grady though, he's a project in a different way.
Yeah,
Hypothetically,
Brady's
if
a
we didn't ruin a
project.
shot.
Coloco's a project right now. I think Precious and Flynn, I guess you could still say, even though they're older, they're still kind of projects. They haven't played a whole lot, especially Flynn. Yeah, now you have some of these two-way guys in the G League. Well, they're technically projects too. I just don't want to have too many of them. And if you bring in a 22-year-old, yeah, they're still kind of a project per se, but they're not going to be a project as long as a kid who's 18
But
years old or
coach,
19
that's
years old
what
coming into the
Flynn
league.
was supposed to be. Flynn's turning 26 at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to also be someone with some skill and stuff coming in,
Yeah, a dude who's
some
ready to go.
awareness of what's going on in the court. So you're not trying to teach them how to play basketball. Not
Jaquez,
saying that
Trace Jackson
that's fun.
Davis, those two guys are ready. Trace Jackson Davis now,
Yeah,
he's basically almost playing starter minutes in Golden State. It's really helping them.
and
So
you
I'm
don't
looking.
necessarily need like all of those guys to build out a roster, but you mix and match. You want some guys with some upside. You want some. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, yeah. No. I'm saying like, look, in the top 5 to 8, take the best talent and go with it. When you're down the later part of the first round, take the best dude available. 19 years old or 22 years old. Take the best guy. In terms of Scotty's timeline, pick a guy who's probably a bit more ready to go now. Not going to take as much time to develop.
Like for example, here's one. For example, like I'm just slightly. I don't want to deviate too much, but to Coach's point, you can make a small deal. Let's say, for example, Houston needs front court help. If you just trade them Boucher in this case and say, "Hey, give us Cam Whitmore,"
Oh, I was thinking of that name because we never
right?
talked about him.
Yeah, and just say take a flyer on Cam Whitmore and say, "Hey, take a shot and see what happens." You're not losing sleep when you lose Boucher for that. Like something like that. It's kind of
Basically Cam Whitmore and like filler.
right. Like you could do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it might be helpful, especially how Houston seems to be more in ascendancy than they maybe thought they would at this pace. They might be saying, "Yeah, we want another vet here to help in the front court because they're thin up there."
He gets you some talent, a prospect. I don't think he's a two way, so he's cost controlled for a little while, and you have his rights and everything. So yeah, I mean, why not, right? So there are deals that we can do, but yeah, I think from me personally, I think a blue chip is absolutely needed. If you're gonna get a blue chip that doesn't fit, that's fine. So like say Jarris Walker or Jarice or whatever, it's fine. But then if you're going to get one that does not fit, then you have to get the extra picks because you have to have as many cracks at the can as you can. Because again, with Scotty Barnes improving, you need talent around him, whether it's
Yep.
by keeping the right one that you're going to keep, which by the way, for the past 10 games, they seem to have fit better, or if you're not, then you have to do it right away through the draft and through this specific trade. Very important trade. Is there any final words that you guys want to say? Because we can kind of leave the conversation
Yeah,
there.
I'm just gonna say that I am open now for Jarius Walker as the principal in the deal if it's the Pacers.
I am too,
Yeah,
but again, you need to get either that or Matherin.
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
the Kobe Buff game. Is
yeah, yeah.
AJ Griffin isn't enough? No, you have
Well,
to give
no,
me
and just like
both.
Nemhard is not the me. Like Nemhard's the principal.
Yeah,
I'm not as fuzzy about it in this case.
and frankly, I still need a pick from Atlanta.
Yeah,
So, out of all the deals, it sounds Golden State's the most interesting. I'm assuming
the
by
state
both of you.
is the most feasible with the with the players involved. If a
Right.
trade was going to go down, that is the likeliest group I think that would.
I agree. And with Indiana as a second, we'll see what happens. So,
Indiana for me is the one that I like to see the most. They got draft picks, they got young players under contract. I think they got players upside too. I think they're just their team alone. I mean, they're a top 5, 6 team right now in the East. Pretty young team. We Nemhard and Matherin and Neesmith. Might be forgetting Toppin to a degree. Like they're young, and I think they have some players that would fit the Raptors moving forward.
absolutely. So, with that being said, I think we covered a lot. I think we covered the thing that people really want to talk about, which is a Siakam deal. I tried to keep it focused on the Siakam deal. I did give a lot of cons, but I also did give some pros that people hopefully appreciate. Like, comment, subscribe, helps the algorithm. Have happy holidays. Hopefully, you see us next week. You may not. If you don't, there will be an episode either way. Take care. Have fun, and peace, everyone.